Ross Kemp is our guest this afternoon. We couldn't be more thrilled. Sorry about the cock-up and all of that type of stuff. We're here to talk about Celebrity, Bridge of Lies, but we're going to talk about everything. If that's all right. Everything, in what will probably sound like a game show format.
Is it the truth? Is it a lie?
Yes. Did it always feature on your horizon that at some stage you might want to break into the enormous light look at the expression on his face.
I can't wait for you to get to the conclusion of the question. Come on.
To break into the light entertainment kind of, big swinging ball of action
Never is
thing.
the answer. And it is a little bit like coming up to a junction. There is no traffic left or right. Indicate right and then turn left. It's something that came out of actually a nice place, really, because there was a lovely lady called Carla Maria who was in charge of daytime and early evening peak at the BBC.
Early evening peak.
Evening peak. And she's now left and gone back to New Zealand to look after her mum, who's not very well. But she asked me during the first lockdown to go off and make some films about people doing good things. So people were making PPE in their homes. There was a really nice guy up in Newbury who's got a gin company, Pete, who was stopped distilling gin and started making hand sanitizer for the local hospital and for the local GP practices. We made this film. It was just me, a cameraman, and my wife's battered old Volkswagen Beetle. And she saw it and she went, "Oh, he's actually quite nice, I think. He's all right." And so 15 different companies bid to get this game show slot. STV won it, and when they won it, she said, "I'd like Ross Kemp to present it." And they went, "You're kidding." They sent me the script, and I think it's like one of those things, having trained originally as an actor, you're given a part, whatever it may be, and you look at it sometimes, you go, "I can't see this ever happening or me ever pulling this off." But I picked up the script to Bridge of Lies and automatically visualised it. I could see it happening. And it sort of reminds me of early evening Saturday television when I was young, which was, when television was a different beast to what it is today. And it's kind of warm, it's eye level, it's not condescending, it's not looking up to you, it's not talking down to you, it's straight in the eye. Family,
is that a TV term?
Play along.
Eye level, or is that one of yours?
I think I've just come up with that.
That's very good.
It sounds very good, doesn't it? Probably someone else will claim it, though.
Well, within seconds there'll be a director of eye level at the BBC.
Of course.
You can credit yourself with
Peak
that.
eye level.
Yeah. What's really striking about it is the enormity of the set, and actually you can't really do a big light entertainment thing anymore without massive kind of graphics and lighting up things and stuff. For people who might not have come across it yet, can you explain what that looks like?
So it is a very big set. It's a bridge that lights up. It's got stepping stones on it. It starts off with 2 steps, then 3 rows of 3s, rows of 4s, rows of 5. Then it narrows again down to 2, and there are a number of truths, a number of lies on it. I find it, and I've said this before, but it is true. Because I'm up on a gantry for the first 4 crossings. It's a team game, so a team of 4 turn up, family, friends, or celebrities, and they each have to get across individually, then they come back as a team. But I often view that bridge as a bit like my life. It was sort of going all right up until halfway, and then it got really, really difficult. And then I started going sideways rather than the direction that I should be going in. And that's what happens to most people, because it starts off with like relatively easy questions, and then it progressively gets harder, a bit like life. And then when they go halfway across, there is a place where you can go to a safety zone on the kind of apex of the bridge. And that's where most people end up going for a period of time to collect their thoughts.
Gosh, have you thought about writing a best-selling book about being the spare?
Yes, well.
Well, he knows all about sibling rivalry, does
Yes,
Ross?
very much so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
listen, I've been up since dawn doing some research on you, Ross. And,
Dawn?
dawn's crack. Since dawn's crack this morning, I've been researching you. And there was a fantastic...
That's a military term, you know that.
Well, we'll talk military matters in a moment. There was a fantastic headline from the Hales Owen News about David James, former England goalie, appearing on Celebrity, Bridge of Lies. And the headline was, "Ross Kemp shocked by how much David James knows about cats."
And I am still.
But how much does David James know about cats?
More than the average vet, I would suggest.
Incredible.
He's a very talented chap. I mean, he started off playing the cello before he started playing rugby, and then sort of moved into football and became the England goalkeeper. He's a very talented, very, very bright man. And that's also kind of like sort of true for most of the celeb eps. You know, whether it's the Pussycat Dolls in Eternal or the radio presenters, all of them, they none of them were
Well, Ross, I mean,
were kind of.
You've been a fool
unduly.
there. You've mentioned the radio
Come
presenters.
on, well then you're on. You want to come on? Series 3 beckons you.
Okay.
I reckon you walk the bridge
I
as
think
well.
we'd be
I think
all
you'd
right,
do it.
actually.
Well,
I
that's
think
a
you'd be
good- that's
very
a good
good.
booking, isn't
But
it?
having said that, it's like everything, isn't it? It's like when you're up in the gantry looking down, it's a lot easier than when you're actually on the bridge.
Gosh, can you just say that again? That's very
When you're on
sexy.
the bridge.
There was an article about you. This is something else I found out in my research. Slightly snooty, as they sometimes can be in The Guardian,
Oh, yes.
about your abilities, suggesting that you've continued to take people by surprise. You left EastEnders, then you started making documentaries. Now you've got the temerity to do a quiz show. They actually liked it. They thought you were good.
Which is the kind of the way The Guardian works, is that we like you, but we'll slap you at the same time.
I'm not going to comment. But do you surprise yourself, Ross, with the range of your abilities?
No one's going to be surprised. What range? Do you know what? I think there's no roadmap in life. I think if you think you've gone I've always found this. Someone said to me very wisely once, Ross, you may get all the things you want in life, but they may not fall in the order that you want them to. And I think you have to, as you get older, you come to the sort of conclusion that that's sort of the way that life is. You're lucky enough to get the things that you want. They may not be in the way or the box that you wanted them in, but think yourself lucky if that happens, because there's a lot of other people out there having a less good time.
Which order did you want all of your things in?
Didn't really even consider that bit. I think it was more about making sure I got on the helicopter and got out of there. They were the more important things when I was doing other stuff. They're the things you're really important. And also, I'll say this about Bridge, particularly the daytime episodes, because the celebrities are raising money for charity.
Yeah.
But there's a real poignant moment in one of the episodes where it's a family and the two, but I could be careful because I want to say, but the other family members fall away, and this mum brings home the bacon, and I look into her eyes when she makes that money, and you know it's not a massive amount in compared to other game shows, but it was life changing for them, and I think it really brought it home to me just how important things like, it may be like entertainment, but it's made a massive difference to that particular family, particularly because of the economic situation many of us find ourselves in now.
Yeah.
You did make quite a pivot, though, didn't you? What was it like to suddenly decide, or what I suppose I really mean, what was the reaction to you deciding to make some pretty hard-hitting documentary shows?
Again, it came by fluke. I was asked to stand at the last minute on a documentary. I was under contract to ITV after leaving the BBC. They were making me. I was doing drama. Somebody fell out at the last moment. They knew that parts of my family have a military background, and they wanted me to go out and make a documentary about America's fascination with firearms. It's still, you can still see it on YouTube. It's called Fatal or Lethal Attraction. In the process of making it, I met a guy who'd been shot 26 times, and I went, nobody's been shot 26 times and lives, until I met Bloodhound. And he lifted his top up and promptly showed me how he'd been cranked open twice. He'd taken 6 9mm to his chest. While he was on the ground, they'd pulled the trigger under his chin. It'd gone up, taken the end of his tongue off, exited by his left nostril, re-entered at the just above his brow, and it was taken out at the top of his skull. So it skimmed, like bullets often take the path of least resistance around helmets, and it done the same thing with his skull. And he was a fascinating man because had he been born 15 blocks in a different area, or in that area, but 15 blocks away, he probably would have been a school teacher, or he would have been a police officer, or he would have been whatever he may have been, but he wouldn't have been a gangster. And albeit the fact that he was a hero in his local location, I could tell he was desperate to get out. I could tell that he didn't have what we were seeing on MTV in those days, which is like, a pneumatic blonde and a low-riding car. Or he was scared. He was living in poverty. He had a very nice, lovely wife, but with 2 children on either hips, and a blocked toilet. And I thought the image that I'm being presented on and in videos in those days was one of glamour, and it's get rich quick or die young trying kind of type stuff. And the reality was poverty and fear and no options. And so I just wanted to make a documentary about it, and that's how I started off making gang documentaries, and then it progressed into other stuff.
There's a lovely moment at the beginning of one of your documentaries about diving for shipwrecks where you meet your mum to have a bit of a chat about your family.
Yeah.
And I really felt for her, Ross, because she says, you say something about, you don't have to worry about me doing this, because she says, diving down that deep is a bit dangerous. And she just says, I've had to worry about you since the moment you were born. And, you have deliberately headed off into danger so many times. I mean, are there ever moments when you've simply thought this just isn't worth it? I really may be jeopardising way too much to bring back the story.
I think the Afghan for me became addictive, and it was in a certain part of my life where I had no responsibilities whatsoever unto myself. And I didn't really give much for monkeys about myself at the time. So, that was, that going back and forth on that regular, frequent basis, it got to the point that the Army, Navy was so happy for me to go out there, and they knew that I wasn't going to get in the way and mess things up for them or be stupid out on the ground, that I would just fly. I just lived not far from where we are now, and I'd get in a taxi, and I'd just go straight to Brize Norton. I'd have my bag already packed by the door, my boots, my body armor, my helmet. And once I remember I was having a pint of beer in a pub on Albert Bridge at 9 o'clock one evening, and the next 9 o'clock I was in a full-on firefight outside of a place called Musakala, and bullets whizzing past my head and going, what am I doing here? But I became addicted to it, and I loved the camaraderie. I loved the friend. It's so different from acting. Acting is a very big thing. There's lots of cameramen, there's lots of people, there's makeup and sound and costume, and this is just me and a cameraman.
Did you ever think you should just join the army?
Do you know what? I don't think I've been very good at being told what to do.
You surprised me.
I think I was watching an episode of, I think it was Extreme World, correct me if I'm wrong, and it was only a couple of years ago. You were in Afghanistan, and you go to a prison which is actually housing quite a lot of former Taliban members.
Yeah, Polishaki prison.
That's right, yeah. And what's so chilling about it is that what you predict, or what some of the contributors predict, has emphatically 100%. Come to pass. And they were saying, you asked somebody, what happens if the Americans leave? And you were told, absolutely, the Taliban will take over. Totally,
and we're continuously told that, and we continually try to put it in the film. It became a bit... The famous... I was told this when I first went out in 2006/7, was, you have the watches, we have the time. And it's like any invading army, it's a 4-to-1 ratio at least, as we're seeing in Ukraine presently, is that, it will take 4 invaders to take one person who's fighting on his home soil. And that was always going to be the issue, unless the money would eventually run out, or the political will would run out, or both would run out, and public sympathy certainly ran out.
Mm. What do you do with that sense of futility then?
Look, wars are generally pretty futile. I think history tells us that. Some are not. Some are just, obviously, if you go back in history far enough. But look, there's often a lot of money involved. People make money. People make money out of wars. I saw a lot of money being made by certain companies. And I saw
arms manufacturers and...
just everything from... Think about the PPE thing that's just happened recently. The same thing happens during a war. It's everything. Yeah. It's everything from socks, food...
The infrastructure
bullets,
you need.
Hesco, the thing that we use, the building blocks, the Lego that you could make by filling bags with sand. Everything had to get there.
Yeah.
Think about the kind of the cost to the environment a war creates. So they're costly things, but people make money out of them.
You're in a very privileged position, aren't you, to be able to go to a director of eye level, above and below, and ask to use your personality and reach and all of those kind of things to do stuff that interests you. So what's next in your line of sight once the glorious light entertainment Saturday evening game show comes to an end?
So I've done a second series of Shipwrecked Treasure Hunters, deeper and further, apparently.
You did it. Is it deeper and further?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we travel further and we dive deeper. So it is factually correct. It had to be, because they put that on the title before we actually made it. But so diving not only in the UK but on Normandy, that was quite emotional. Going to the graveyard at Omaha Beach, and I think there's a moment in it where I got quite emotional, where the American Marine who runs the cemetery now, he's married actually to a female British Marine. And he gives me some sand from the beach, and you wipe it across. You know that famous scene from Saving Private Ryan, those white marble crosses. You can't see the names because they're just carved into the marble. But as soon as you put sand across it, the name comes alive. Oh, wow. And it's like shaking hands with that person all of a sudden. And he chose specifically a certain gentleman who had been in the US Marine Corps. All the American Marines were fighting in the Pacific at the time of D-Day. So they're all Army. A Navy, an Air Force, US, and obviously British forces and French forces. But this guy had been in the Marines, retired when the Second World War came along, volunteered himself, got into the infantry as an officer, and he was killed 2 days into Normandy and just outside of Caen. And I think it's, for me, one thing I will try to impress upon my kids is that there are many sacrifices that have been made over time for us to have the world and the life that we live, even though we criticise it continuously. But it could be a damn worse place than it actually is, and if it wasn't for some of the sacrifices that have been made.
Is there anything, any amount of money on earth that could lure you back to doing a BBC popular East End set soap opera?
I honestly say this, and it's not me playing games or being funny. I just think you can never say never. I'm a freelancer. Who knows? My days of running across open fields and getting rounds fired at me probably diminishing rapidly. We'll have a sell-by date.
Don't you want to round off sometimes sitting in the Queen Vic, nursing a pint of mild?
Who knows? Do you know? That's not an easy gig necessarily.
I'm not saying it is.
You've got to get yourself there. You've got to get yourself back. There's no chauffeur.
What?
The call times change every day. So I used to drive from Clapham up to Elstree nearly every day, like 6 days or 5 days a week. And you're judging the show. You've got to be there by 11 one day. You've got to be there 4:30 in the morning the next day, and all that. And then you've got to learn all those lines.
Kibosh by the ULEZ at the moment.
Do you know what I used to do? I used to sleep in my dressing room. And I used to get security guards used to come wait until about 4 o'clock when I was in my deepest sleep. They'd come and wake me up. I was like, you shouldn't be in here. You're breaking the rules.
Final question from me, and I'm sure Jane has a finale
I want to
too.
know about David James and cats.
Okay, we'll save that one up. Oh gosh, well, our questions couldn't be more different. A lot of the stuff that you make, Ross, I hope you don't mind me saying this, it's blokey. I feel it is quite a kind of masculine television.
But not represented by the demographic.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Let's hear about that. Who watches your stuff?
Well, the demographic split male and female, it's only about 2% more male.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask whether or not you would ever consider making some documentaries about the really appalling misogyny that's out there at the moment. Yeah, I'd quite like to see you in conversation with an Andrew Tate.
Would it be applicable for a man to do that?
Yeah. I think
think she's absolutely spot on.
I think it's that conversation between a decent, right-minded man and a toxic man that we're not hearing, actually. I think you hear a lot of women, rightly, being upset and angry.
Well, I'd love to.
And it just pings off them.
That fascinates me. The reason, I always say that jokingly, I said the reason I fell into sort of documentary making it is because my dad was a police officer and my mum was a hairdresser. So I can ask you some pretty difficult questions, then wonder where you're actually going on your holidays this year. But that kind of soft and hard touch, I think I possess naturally from my parents. And I'm not sure which one was which sometimes. They both had the capacity to be both things. But I think that's something that I've utilised. And also 3 years of training as an actor does help you when you're engaged. You're a journalist. When you're engaging with people who are sometimes not feeling themselves or have had an immediate moment of grief or whatever it may be, or under the influence of narcotics and carrying an automatic weapon that they don't know how to use properly. Whatever it may be, I think you draw on what you are and who you are to get what you need from that particular situation to make your film work.
I think
your story stand up.
Fee is absolutely right. We want to see Ross Kemp on toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I genuinely would
There's a lot
love
of it.
that.
Do you know what? And also, you think it would be a thing of the past, and it seems. And also, there are people out there that are encouraging it. Or as we know, if one person at the moment is being held in custody, so. in a different country. I know you know who I'm talking about. So I was absolutely shocked when someone explained to me that it's out there and that blatant. Because, I'll be honest, I've generally got on better with female bosses than I have with male bosses, for whatever reason. That's not always the case, but in general, I have. Some men find that difficult to be told what to do by a woman. I've never had a problem with it, as long as they were telling me something that I believe was the right thing or the correct thing to do.
Yeah. Well, Jane and I would love to watch that series, and I hope at some stage you consider doing it and it gets commissioned.
Maybe at eye level, hopefully at peak time. Never mind about the cats. No, it all seems just ridiculous and trivial. And
no, but it was surprising. It was amazing. I mean, Russian blue. How does he know that a Russian blue is a type of cat? He does, though.
Well done, David. Ross, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
very much.
Thank you.